Hey friends, welcome back to Belle's Library. So today I want to share with you guys the books that I'm thinking about reading, probably my pile of possibilities, that I'm thinking about reading over the rest of August and also through the month of September. Now I have been participating in Historathon this year, although I didn't do so great over the last few months. It's just been super busy. But life is starting to slow down now, and I've picked out some books to sort of finish up this quarter. At the end of September, we will be done with quarter 3, which runs 1500 to 1820. Those are the eras in which we are reading nonfiction works from those eras during this quarter 3. So that runs to the end of September, and then October through December will be quarter 4, which will be, 1820 to modern times. So I have some books picked out, and I've done a little bit of change up from what my original plan was. So I'm glad that I have actually gotten to this video a little bit later in the month than I normally would, because we had planned, my daughter and I had planned on going to England. Our trip was scheduled for the second week of September, and we were going to go to the Jane Austen Festival in Bath and some other places around England. But with the recent news of things that are going on there and the unrest, we are just a little bit concerned. We're just not too sure what we're going to encounter. And so we're both just thinking it might be wise to stay home for a little bit and let things hopefully simmer down and get better. So no political statements here. That's where I'm just gonna leave things. But anyway, what I had planned to do for the rest of this month was to read a bunch of stuff that was, written about or during the time of Jane Austen, and to read about some of the places that we're going to be going to, and whatever, books like that that sort of fit in with the quarter 3 of Historathon. However, now that we're not going, I'm kind of not in the mood. So I'm gonna go with this pile here that I'm gonna show you, and we'll see if I end up adding some of that stuff as well. All right, so the first book that I want to show you guys, this is The Witches by Stacy Schiff. I showed you guys this in my last video where I gave you guys a look at what I picked out from the bookshop hop that we did in Michigan last week. One of my daughters and I had hopped around to a bunch of different bookshops all over Grand Rapids and Grand Haven. A few of our family members went up there for a short vacation, and anyway, you guys can check out that video. But this is one of the books that I chose. It is a nonfiction work about the Salem witch trials. In the introduction, the author made the case that there is a lot of information out there that really has just become legend, that there's not a lot of evidence for these things. So her hope was to lay out evidence for what actually happened, give us a look at what really happened. And so I am about, so you guys can see, I'm about halfway through. I am just not really it's not that I'm not enjoying it. I mean, I've annotated, as you guys can see, there's some good stuff in here. However, I'm having a hard time staying tuned in to what's going on here in this book, because it's a lot of information, but there's just a lot of people, and it's really repetitive, right? So there's a lot of names, and I think it could have been condensed down quite a bit. And then it's hard to look at this whole historical account in the kind of way that maybe this author is wanting us to see it, by putting aside all the legends and stories and just looking at the facts, because my mind is filling in all of the legends and stories, right? And sort of filling in just bits and pieces that she hasn't necessarily brought out here, that she actually talked about in her introduction as being part of the myth and legend of the Salem witch trials, but I'm filling in with my mind. So I will finish this up, but it's been a little slower going than I would like. All right, and then the next book that I've got on the list is the works of Anne Bradstreet. She was a colonial woman, a Puritan woman, and she lived before the time of the witch trials, okay? So she actually died 20 years before the witch trials. And so she was writing in the early and mid 1600s, and the witch trials actually took place in 1692, 93 in there. And so anyway, this is a book of her poetry and prose. And so I'll not rereading the entire thing, but one of my goals for this year was to read some poetry because that's something that I really struggle with. And so because I'm kind of on this, era already, I'm gonna pick out a few things and read from this collection of of Poetry by Anne Bradstreet. All right, and then again in that same vein, I've got this book of Plymouth Plantation. Now I ordered this from Amazon. It's William Bradford's diary, basically. He was the leader of the Plymouth colony in Massachusetts, 1642, I think. Let's see, yeah, so he was writing this diary between 1620 and 1647. So it actually tells the story starting in 1608, right? So he backtracks a little and clear up through 1647. I bought this a few months ago because I am actually trying to prove a theory that I won't go into that right now, but about the Pilgrims and some of their beliefs and things. And so anyway, I picked this up from Amazon, but I failed to sort of look at the size of it. So it's like, you know, a big book, and then the writing is like this, guys. So I don't know if I'm gonna be, I have like whatever that is where you have to hold it way out, and I have to hold this way out. So I'm probably gonna look for a different version of this, but it'll be something just to look through a little bit, but not read cover to cover, not that version for sure. All right, so next up, same century, but different country. We're moving over to England, and I have this stack of books all about Samuel Pepys. Now, Samuel Pepys, I don't even know where I first heard about him, but I've always been intrigued by Samuel Pepys's diary, okay, because he talks about both the Great Fire of London and the plague that was happening there in the 1660s. And so I've always wanted to read his diary. I think maybe my kids had this on like a reading list or something in their homeschool. So I was very interested, right, in learning more about Samuel Pepys. So I've got Samuel Pepys's diary. And then I have this biography of Samuel Pepys by Claire Tomalin, and she is fantastic, right, as a biography writer. And then this is the illustrated Pepys. So this is like excerpts from his diary with some illustrations. In fact, here is a picture of the Great Fire. So then illustrations to go with different portions. Like here's some of Charles II and in the Abbey and drawings. And so it looks like they got these illustrations, it says, from a wealth of contemporary material. So some of it was from Pepys' own collection of engravings at Cambridge, and then just other, you know, sources of artwork, drawings, sketchings, like woodblock stuff. So that'll be interesting too. And again, I don't know that I will actually read this cover to cover, but it will be something interesting to look through and reference as I read through his diary. In fact, the whole idea of Samuel Pepys keeping a diary, Queen Victoria, I actually started reading something today. Oh, I need to get that for you guys. And I have one more book that I didn't put out here. Anyway, I was reading about somebody else today, and they were a lifelong diarist, and I'm just like, you know, I really need to be better about keeping my journal up. I need to be better about keeping a diary because, you know, I don't think Samuel Pepys, as he was recording these things down, thought that like his diary would, you know, span the next 350 or more years, where we would be reading it now and thinking, wow, that's so interesting. It's just, I'm reading this to study, you know, well, the Great Fire or the Great Plague or whatever. And he was just writing stuff, right? He was just writing about his observations in the city that he lived in. And so now, you know, we're using it as a reference to study these portions of history. I think that's so cool. All right, I did grab that book that I bought today. This is Shakespeare's Sisters by Raimi Targoff. So I bought this today because when my husband woke up this morning and he went downstairs to go to work, he texted me after a few minutes. He's like, today is National Book Lovers Day. And I was like, oh, good. I'm going to take the whole day off then and read. He's like, oh, yeah, kids, you don't need any, you know, whatever. We were just like joking back and forth about all the things that we both know that I actually needed to do today. And I was just going to blow it all off to read. And So I didn't. I was good. I took my son to his play practice. I took my daughter to work and picked her up. I did my grocery shopping. I made dinner. I did all the stuff that I had planned to do today. But in the midst of all of that, I went to Barnes & Noble. So I've been keeping my Barnes & Noble credit, just kind of keeping it aside for some special purchase someday when I didn't have any extra cash to spend on books. And so today I went in there and I was like, oh, it's a national holiday if it's National Book Lovers Day. So grabbed that book with my credit from Barnes & Noble, so that was pretty awesome. It's a really good program if you guys haven't signed up for that yet. If you're in the US, I've been a Barnes & Noble member for years and always got my discount and all that kind of thing, but now they have like a points program where I think anybody can sign up. I don't think you have to pay for it. And then as you spend money, you get points, and then as you get points, you get credit. And like I said, I had $25 today, so that was pretty awesome. But anyway, I got this book, Shakespeare's Sisters. So what this is, it's a book about 4 different women during the Renaissance who wrote, okay? So there's one of them is a diarist. Her whole section is just about her and her diary. She was a mom and a wife, and she stayed at home and did her at-home stuff, but she kept a really good diary. So that will be interesting to read about her. There's some other writers, poets, whatever in here. So there's 4 women, and they're women that I had not heard of. But the idea, the reason why it's called Shakespeare's Sisters is if you read Virginia Woolf, The Room of Her Own, in there she imagines what if Shakespeare had a sister named Judith, right? And if Judith Shakespeare was writing, then, she would have all of these limitations and all these whatevers, and because she was a woman, right? And she didn't have a room of her own, and she didn't have, she would need money and a place to write, basically, is what Virginia Woolf says. If you want to write fiction, you got to have money and a place of your own, a room of your own. So this woman is saying, no, not necessarily, because here's 4 women who wrote during Shakespeare's time and did just fine. So the whole first, introduction to this kind of gets rid of all of those ideas of Virginia Woolf by, introducing these 4 women. And A Room of Her Own is one of those books that I really need to do a video on because, it irks me. And probably not for the reasons that you might think. So anyways, that's a different topic. Okay, so I've got 3 more here. This one, I don't even know I don't know where this came from, all right? But I've got this book here. It's called The American Revolutionaries, A History in Their Own Words, 1750 to 1800. This is by Milton Meltzer. And so this is basically some quotes and writings from people who lived during that time, 1750 to 1800, about the American Revolution. And it's really interesting as I'm looking through this. I've got a whole lot of first-person account sort of stuff here, don't I? So I might read through. I don't know how much of this I'll get through. I kind of struggle to read American history. I don't really know why, but it is one of my goals this year to read more things about the country that I actually live in. But yeah, I struggle. I don't know. So, but I'll look through it at least and read at least some of it. And then I've got this. I did say about one Jane Austen book from that pile of stuff. This is The Real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things by Paula Byrne. I am already about a third of this through this because I started it a long time ago. And basically it just takes like a thing, okay, like an object in her life or in the during the time period, and then it just kind of talks about it and her with it. Sounds like a really ridiculous way to put things, but for instance, one of the chapters is the vellum notebooks. Okay, so we've got some vellum notebooks, a little illustration, and they're basically where she has written down some of her little stories, some little things, little poems, little satirical writings, and a lot of them have now been published as Jane Austen's Juvenilia. And so it just kind of tells the story of those, and then sometimes it will talk about how they relate to the broader culture. Like the chapter I am on is called The Cocked Hat. It says, this cocked hat belonged to Captain John Meadows of the Oxfordshire Militia, Henry Austen's regiment. So Henry Austen was one of Jane's brothers. And so it's going to talk here about the cocked hat, drawing in Henry Crawford from Mansfield Park, Persuasion, just kind of taking an object from that era and then talking about it in her writing and in the broader historical era. Does that work? So it's a very slow read because it's kind of hops around from subject to subject, and a lot of that stuff we don't have now, right? So it's like we're exploring this thing, and then we're like, okay, I'm gonna do something else now, and then I'll come back and explore that thing. So I might read a chapter or two of that. All right, and then the last book on my list for this month specifically that I know I will read because I'm on the launch team for this is Shield of the Mighty by Connie Lynn Cossette. All right, so this one is a biblical fiction novel, and you guys have heard me talk about Christian fiction and inspirational fiction in the past and how I absolutely despise it. Anything that I have read in the last probably 20 years that is labeled Christian fiction or inspirational fiction, I have just absolutely despised. But Connie Lynn Cossette writes biblical fiction, which I actually am really loving, okay? Now, she is the only author I've read in that genre so far, so I am a little wary still, but her books are fantastic, okay? So I discovered her a few years ago, and I read something and just ended up like buying everything she ever wrote. And then I wheedled my way onto her launch team last year for the book that she put out last August. This year I was invited to be on her launch team, so I'm super excited about that. So she writes books that are set in the Old Testament, and it's books about the people of Israel. And this book is going to be one of the stories that take place during the time when they are being captured by Philistines and dealing with all of that threat. And so, you know, I won't go into it too much because I'm actually going to make a launch video and, you know, do a giveaway and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff will be over on my ministry channel, but I will let you guys know in case you're interested in joining the giveaway or hearing about the book. It fits a little better over on my ministry channel, and so that's where I'm going to put that stuff, but I will make sure that you know about it. Last year I gave away a whole package of books by her, and I will do something similar this year, but I haven't decided what to get, but I should probably get on that. So anyway, that's the last one on my pile here. So I've only got 2 fictions. I've got this one and oh yeah, and the works of Anne Bradstreet. Everything else is nonfiction, so wow. Alrighty then. So that's what I'm gonna do over the next, 7 weeks or so, 7 or 8 weeks. And I might get to more stuff. Like I said, some of these I'm just kind of gonna pick through a little bit and read portions. So we'll see. We'll see what I actually do. But right now, like I said, I'm reading that book on the witches. Need to get through that. And then I should probably read Shield of the Mighty so I can get that one out. So those are my goals for this coming week, is to read those 2 books. And then I think I want to go into Shakespeare's Sisters because, like I said, I read the introduction to that. I really enjoyed it. So anyway, that's what I got so far, guys. Hope you're having a beautiful day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.